This podcast will fail, mostly because nobody's going to listen to it. Well, you might prove me wrong. Who knows? And hello, friend. You who are not actually listening to this. Welcome to episode 19? Yeah, episode 19. And once again, editing yesterday's podcast, recognizing a whole second set of revelations and sudden self-awareness, I guess. I mean, it's a good way to put it. I started talking yesterday about many of the folks that I have met and become acquainted with, as well as those individuals that became friends. There's no two ways about it. And as I said in the episode yesterday, these are friends that I have never met in real life and that I likely never will, but are good, solid, loved, and beloved friends, nonetheless. People that have had an impact on me, people that I hope I've had an impact on them. And the whole premise of this first season of this podcast was to look back at the 15 years worth of creative projects that I have attempted and taken on and created and done various things with, and ultimately each one of those projects quote unquote failed. In reality, I think as I've come down to the end of it here, I think there is one last episode tomorrow to close out season 1. The reality is that it's not fair for me to say that these different things have failed. Internet radio, podcasting, YouTube, writing, it's not that they failed, it's that I gave up. And I think that's an important distinction that I might have been missing all along. Because at the end of the day, if I put those statements in the context of the people that I've met and the friends that I have made, and more than enough of them have said things to me that make me think, no, not friends that I've made, friends that I've earned. What's important is that I stop and recognize the point that I was trying to make to myself yesterday, and I got a little too flustered making that point. This whole exercise of self-deprecation in this season 1, right? This whole 15 years of failure, it really does lay insult to the faith and friendship that people put in me. It's really not fair. It's like I mentioned a couple times in the course of this, the idea that maybe I'm wallowing in a pity party and I need to avoid that. Well, I think it goes a little deeper than that. I think that I owe these people better than to just sit there and wallow. Because it kind of insults their intelligence. It insults their sense of, I don't know, what's good. They enjoyed what I made, right? They propped me up. These people that I've met over these years, handfuls of them. I made a crack a couple episodes of, tens of them. Not millions, not thousands, but tens of them. And in the grand analysis of everything, I owe those tens of people better. And that hit me like a brick towards the end of yesterday's episode. It was really hard for me to countenance this idea that somehow I suck at what I do and I must be screwing up so much because I'm a talentless wannabe hack. All these different things that I was doing to try and knock myself down so that I could somehow make myself feel better was a dishonor to the people that never knocked me down, that showed up every single week, regardless of whether or not some of them were certainly in that view for view, play for play, watch for watch, follow for follow, sub for sub, whatever. Some of that was the circular logic, but not nearly as much of it as I can admit. There's a lot of good people. I mentioned only a small handful of them yesterday, but when I stop and look at the comments on some of the things I've made in the past year, when I look at some of the Facebook pages that I left up there, and here, like, I'll give you a quick example. I'll give you one more example. Someone that I kind of disrespected without even realizing it in yesterday's episode. An individual is a family member of a YouTube creator who was my big push promoter for this last project that broke me. She's the one I mentioned that was on me every day. This is awesome. Keep going. This is going to be great. Well, when I was hosting the game show as the character, her family got way into that show. Like, they were there reliably every single week wanting to play along and be in the audience and be contestants and be whatever. And as I was going through the Facebook pages last night, I saw that I had missed a comment from one of them. 2 comments, actually, saying basically, I really miss Saturday nights with the crew. And after having had that conversation that kind of shook me up yesterday, and now moving into this, what in the God's name is that? And now moving into this, how is that fair to that person? Right? That person's never going to hear this podcast. I understand, right? This is still something of a internal dialogue echo chamber. Fine. But I have higher standards than that, I'd like to think. I'm not nearly as much of a sociopath as I sometimes like to make myself out to be. I do give a crap about people and how people are affected by things. And when I saw that comment that said that I really miss Saturday nights with the crew, damn, that hit. So I need to retool my thoughts around my own content. It's not always been about me. And there's been plenty of times when my sole purpose in doing something was to try and elevate others. That shouldn't surprise me, because that's part of what I do in the real world, in my professional space. I get just as much enjoyment and satisfaction out of seeing others succeed and being a part of that success as I do ever hoping or dreaming that something I make will suddenly become successful and make me rich and famous. That's not to say that there's not an element of jealousy. I'm human. I can admit it. I have no reason not to confess right here before no one, because no one's listening to this thing. This is me, I guess, testifying before myself. I am susceptible to jealousy. I am. I wonder sometimes when I see other folks that have made it and have become something in that box, something in that definition of success that I seem to hold so dear to myself, and I see others accomplishing things that I can't for whatever reason. And maybe a lot of that reason is just me, right? Do I have that staying power? Do I have the ability to stick it out when things aren't going the way I want them to? That's more of a question than a statement, and I don't know that the reality of my creative life demonstrates anything other than, no, you don't have the staying power, and you don't have the fortitude to persevere through tough situations. You give up. I give up. I guess that's a trait I'll have to work through in the future, because I think I know what I'm doing here, and I definitely got a lot out of this first season of this project. This podcast, which will fail, has been great. It has truly been great, and I feel it, I see it, I recognize the therapeutic aspects of having these conversations with myself. But the question is, what do I want to do with it now? Where am I going from here? What am I doing? At the moment, I don't feel any particular draw to the original YouTube channel. I don't have any inspiration around that right now. I don't feel any particular, need to do something or make something or whatever. Right? It's dormant. That's fine, I guess. Sometimes I sit there and think that I should be putting some kind of a capstone on it, or at least publishing something to say, yeah, I know I stopped. It's okay. I'll come back someday. But then I don't know if it matters. Who cares? Does anybody actually care? Well, the 30-ish views that any video gets on my channel on its own without me trying to promote it to the 2,600 people who are subscribed to it and couldn't give a shit, that right there is the biggest contradiction with YouTube. And unless you're famous, the subscriber number is absolutely meaningless. 2,600 people have, over the last almost 5 years now, 4.5 years, clicked the subscribe button. And only 30 of them come back on a regular basis to watch something more than the video that they watched that caused them to subscribe. That's messed up. So I don't know if it matters. I talked a couple episodes back about my own personal brand of OCD. I think that's the OCD talking, saying that I can't just leave it open like that. I need to do something or say something. But it's not the first time. I've done that in the past when I've stopped. It didn't amount to anything. It's okay. The YouTube channel is not going to be useful to me right now. I don't feel like filming anything. I don't care. I don't care to edit a video. I have no topic in mind. I have no direction I want to go there. So, okay. I guess YouTube's going to stay where it is. The writing continues. I know that I'm still working through some elements of this fiction story that I've been writing for 20 years. And it's gotten further ahead now than it ever has. And I all of a sudden realized last night, I was about to start banging away on the keyboard and typing, realized that I'm about to possibly turn a corner in that story that I didn't see coming. That happens a lot with my fiction writing. Something all of a sudden comes up that I didn't see coming, which means a whole hell of a lot more work and a potentially much longer book than I intended it to be. But that's okay. I follow the story. The story takes me where my imagination decides the story's going to go, and that's not usually a conscious effort on my part. There's a lot of conscious thought through, does that make sense? Does this make sense? How in the world? Where is this person going when I'm talking about the characters and thinking about the scenarios? So I guess the writing will continue. Might be might be another 10 years before I finish that book. Who knows? But this podcast is what I have right now. This is what captures my attention and gives me a reason to want to create anything. So where do I go from here? I'm certainly not going to continue to lay down the same set of facts over and over and over again. I've kind of done that a little bit in these first 19 but soon to be 20 episodes. I've restated a lot of points. I think I did that because I figured someone might come along and watch episode 13 all of a sudden, and I got to put a little bit of some type of reference context back to the first 12 and so on and so on, but it doesn't really matter. I want to do more. I like this format. I'm enjoying podcasting more doing it this way than I certainly did the first time around when I was trying to script it and make it topic relevant and trying to make it business friendly and trying to make it something that would attract business clientele, for professional reasons. That was great for 10 episodes and then I was bored. But this sort of free-form stream of consciousness kind of stuff is very liberating. It's really been good for me. It's really easy to do. And it gives me something to keep my hands and my mind busy in the creative space. That still doesn't answer the question of what it is I'm actually going to do. I know, I'm confident now. Tomorrow, I will close out season 1 with one last video on this topic of my 15 years of failure. Okay, this is good. That'll be a nice capstone. I'm ready for that. I'm ready to close this book out. But I want to continue to do the podcast, so what the hell am I going to do? As I sit here today, I don't know. But I need to come up with an answer to that question in the next 2 days. And does that even matter? Does that matter? Am I organizing this thing into seasons for some purpose of my own? Is this just to pacify my OCD? And that I need to have things in neat rows and in boxes. And a season's a great way to make a box on a podcast. But does anybody care? Well, maybe. Maybe not. I don't know. I gotta come up with an answer on that. And I gotta come up with it pretty soon. I've had a couple of free-floating thoughts about it over the past week. That maybe it is just a stream of consciousness thing. But I worry that if I sit down here in the front seat of the car or on the weekends when I sit down in front of my podcasting rig at home, if I think that I'm going to somehow hold an interesting conversation with myself when the topic is nothing, I don't see where that's anything other than circular psychobabble that is not even interesting to myself, let alone anybody who might stumble upon this podcast. If I'm trying to really make it a self-fulfilling prophecy of this podcast failing, that feels like a pretty surefire way to do it. So I don't know that that's the answer necessarily. I think, there's opportunities for me to go in other directions. Things more related to what I did in the early days of my YouTube channel, but with less pressure, right? Less concern about crisp, clean video and well-edited scenes and good audio and lighting and all that. I think I can have some of these conversations out loud without it being burdensome to do so. So I need to figure out what I want to do going forward. But all right, that's it. That's going to do for today. We got one more tomorrow to close this out. I am sure nobody made it this far in, but even if you just started it and went away later, you have my thanks. And I hope you have a great day wherever you are, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one.